Hello, my name is Christina Garofalo, and I worked with Rebecca Rogers and Caleb Harding on the paper Salmon Sickness and Musgamagw Dzawada'enuxw Health, an examination of Indigenous values regarding farmed salmon issues. This presentation will introduce you to the structure and the findings of this paper. The videos you'll be seeing are the interviews which we utilized in our research and will discuss later as our methods. Our thesis for this research paper was to determine if the presence of fish farms contributes to the spread of viruses in the wild salmon population, and if this has a negative impact on the Musgamagw Dzawada'enuxw people. We found this topic to be intriguing as it's become highly controversial and covered by the media. Our thesis will address a 30-year contemporary dispute between the Musgamagw Dzawada'enuxw community and commercial fish farm companies who reside on unceded territory. In British Columbia, there are a multitude of settler-controlled fish farms functioning against the Musgamagw Dzawada'enuxw people's interests. This research study aims to set a precedent by reviewing the arguments of the Musgamagw Dzawada'enuxw in correlation with the scientific data. This approach will connect Western scientific data with the qualitative arguments of the people who live on the same territory of the fish farms. The paper starts with an introduction of the topic, then reviews the methods involved, goes over the results, engages in discussion from our perspectives, and then after consulting the findings, we draw a conclusion on the thesis.
Our research question fits within the topical study of imposed ecological and cultural harm on Indigenous communities. Infringement on Indigenous practices, territory, and heritage is a multidisciplinary area of research that has been approached from a variety of perspectives. Our paper aims to shed light on the detrimental effects of foreign-owned fish farms on Musgamagw Dzawada'enuxw territory, as no study has extensively researched the consequential impact on community members. After establishing our general research question, we operationalized our concepts by identifying variables. The presence of sea lice viruses from foreign-owned fish farms was established as our independent variable, and the self-perceived well-being of the Musgamagw Dzawada'enuxw community members as our dependent variable. Our first method was to analyze the relative literature. For this, we consulted a research paper which quantitatively identified sea lice parasites in salmon on the west coast of British Columbia. This established that fish farms hold at least partial responsibility for the spread of sea lice to wild salmon. After establishing this partial causation, we began to code our qualitative data. For this, we conducted a textual analysis to determine if there is a correlation between the sea lice outbreak and the perception of fish farms by the Musgamagw Dzawada'enuxw community members. First, we analyzed 10 videos produced by a community advocacy group. After transcribing these videos and general theming, we tagged the interviews and created 9 recurrent words or themes. These tags were then used to represent the community's perception of fish farms.
Our evidence points to the expansive effects of foreign-owned fish farms. The spread of sea lice is discernible, and the community explicitly stands against the fish farms as the effects are seen to negatively impact the community at large. Our qualitative tagging produced 9 core themes. The identified themes include reference to sickness, induced psychological pain, residential schools, individual perception, collective perception, the use of our as a noun, reference to family, the intrinsic link to wild salmon, and explicit anti-fish farm claims. We must also address the potential failings of our study to gain a holistic understanding of the issue. One issue is the unavoidable bias presented by the video producers. A second issue is the lack of representation of non-interviewed community members, as their perspective is not given a voice. And thirdly, this paper neither addresses nor presents any potential solutions or answers to this problem. Our collected data shows a strong opposition to the operation of foreign-owned fish farms. The opposition is rooted in claims to sovereignty over land, psychological harm, and the community's intrinsic relationship with wild salmon. These findings support our initial hypothesis and encourage more research and action to be taken in advocacy for Indigenous rights to territory.